I still remember the exact moment I realized something had changed between us. It wasn't a shout, a fight, or even a harsh word. It was subtle, quiet. One evening, I was in the kitchen, washing dishes after a long day, and Jamal came in. He glanced around the house, then looked at me and said almost casually, "You don't really do much around here, do you?" I froze. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. My hands were wet, the suds slipping through my fingers, and my heart just sank. Everything I had done for this family, the nights I stayed awake with the children, the meals I prepared, the bills I managed, the sacrifices I quietly made, it felt invisible. I wanted to say something. I wanted to remind him of the years, of the sleepless nights, of the constant effort. But instead, I smiled. I nodded. And I continued washing the dishes, pretending the words didn't hurt as much as they did. Our home had always been a place of warmth. From the first day I met Jamal, I loved that feeling of togetherness. I had grown up in a small apartment with my mother and little sister, learning early on that love was shown through effort, through sacrifice, and through care. That's what I brought into our marriage. Every bit of my heart, every ounce of patience. We married young. Jamal had dreams, and I had dreams too. But I knew early on that some dreams would take a back seat. I didn't mind. I wanted to support him. I wanted to build a life together. And for years, we did just that. I remember the first house we bought. It was small, nothing fancy, but it was ours. And I worked hard to make it feel like home. I painted the walls, hung the curtains, bought plants that would brighten the rooms. Every Saturday, I scrubbed floors, organized closets, and baked cookies to make the place smell like warmth and comfort. Jamal loved it. He would come home, tired from work, and sigh with relief, wrapping me in his arms. "Aisha," he'd say, "you make this house feel like a home." Those words, once so full of love, seemed like echoes from a different lifetime. I could still hear them in my mind now, but the warmth they carried had faded. We had children soon after. Malik was our first, then little Tasha a few years later. My life became a rhythm of feedings, school runs, doctor visits, and endless laundry. And yet, I never complained. I loved my children fiercely. I loved my husband fiercely. I loved the life we were building together. Even when Jamal worked late nights, I never begrudged him. I stayed up, waited for him, sometimes falling asleep on the couch, only to wake to his tired smile. I cooked his favorite meals, cleaned his shirts until they shone, and whispered encouragements when he felt defeated. I carried the weight of our home on my shoulders, and I thought we were a team. But lately, it felt like that teamwork was one-sided. Jamal had been distant, not cruel, not exactly, just absent, emotionally absent. The words I once heard so often, the gratitude I once felt from him, were replaced by silence. It started with little things. He would forget to mention small victories, like the fundraiser I organized for the kids' school, or the hours I spent volunteering in our neighborhood. He would forget appointments I scheduled, and sometimes he would shrug off the plans I made for family dinners as if they were unimportant. I tried to brush it off at first. Maybe he was stressed at work. Maybe he had worries he didn't want to share. But the more I tried to reach him, the more I felt myself slipping into the shadows of my own home. I was still there, still doing everything, but somehow invisible. The tipping point came one evening. I had prepared a special dinner: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, Tasha's favorite salad. I had set the table carefully, lit candles, and even baked a small chocolate cake for dessert. I wanted us to have a night where we could sit together as a family, laugh, and reconnect. Jamal came in late, tired, and sat down without so much as a glance at my efforts. He began scrolling on his phone while Tasha tried to show him a drawing she made at school. "That's nice," he muttered, barely looking up. Malik was quiet, sensing the tension in the air. And I sat there, smiling, trying to hide the sting in my heart. Finally, I spoke. Jamal, did you see the cake I made? Or the table? He sighed. Yeah, I saw it. Looks fine. Fine. That word hit me like a blow. Fine. All those nights I stayed up until midnight finishing chores. All the sacrifices, all the love and care. And it was fine to him. I don't think I cried that night. I just went to the kitchen after dinner, cleaned the dishes in silence, and let the tears fall quietly into the sink. I didn't want the children to see. I didn't want them to know that their father didn't see the woman who had built this home for them, who had built this life. I wondered for the first time if all my efforts meant anything at all. I wondered if the life I had imagined, full of love, respect, and shared responsibility, was slipping away from me without me even noticing. Our family had always been close, at least on the surface. We laughed together, celebrated birthdays, and shared small moments. But what I realized that night was that building a home doesn't just mean walls and furniture. It's about recognition, respect, and care. And when that disappears, the walls feel empty, no matter how clean or beautiful they are. I thought about my mother and how she had carried our family alone for years. She had told me once, Aisha, sometimes people forget the hands that hold them up. Don't let it break your spirit. I clung to those words as I dried my hands and turned off the kitchen light. The next few days were tense. Jamal didn't notice the change in me. He carried on with work and routine, unaware that the woman beside him was quietly feeling invisible. I tried to speak to him, tried to express my feelings, but every time the words caught in my throat. I didn't want to fight. I wanted to be seen. I wanted acknowledgement, and when it didn't come, I withdrew, quietly, into my own thoughts. I started writing little notes in my journal at night, things I wished he could see. The nights I stayed awake with the kids, the days I managed appointments, the meals I cooked when I was exhausted, the time I spent holding the family together when he was away. Writing it down helped, but it didn't fill the void I felt at home. Our house, once a haven, felt different now. The walls seemed colder, the rooms quieter. I moved through the days like a shadow, performing tasks, smiling when I needed to, but never letting myself feel fully seen. And yet, despite it all, I loved Jamal. I loved my children. I loved this home. I believed, somewhere deep down, that things could be repaired. I believed that perhaps he had simply forgotten, lost in stress and routine, and that love could remind him. But that hope was fragile, like glass. One wrong word, one careless gesture, and it could shatter completely. It was on a rainy Thursday afternoon that everything came to a head. I had picked up Malik from school, packed Tasha's backpack, and prepared snacks for when Jamal came home. I felt a quiet pride in the home I had built, and also a quiet fear, knowing that the man I loved so dearly might no longer see me. I opened the door and Jamal stepped in, shaking off his umbrella. He paused for a moment, looked around, and then said those words that cut deeper than anything before. You know, sometimes I think I could have done all this on my own. You weren't really necessary. I stood frozen, the umbrella slipping from his hand. My heart raced, my mind whirled, and yet I stayed calm. I nodded, forced a smile, and went to the kitchen, pretending I didn't hear. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I thought of everything I had done for this family. I thought of my sacrifices, my love, my quiet devotion. And I realized that love, no matter how strong, can feel invisible if it's never acknowledged. That was the beginning of a long, quiet journey. A journey of reflection, of understanding, and ultimately, of finding my own voice. The days that followed were quiet, but heavy. Jamal went to work as usual, Malik and Tasha went to school, and I moved through the house performing my usual duties. But the warmth I had once felt in my home was gone. Every action I took felt unnoticed. Every word I spoke seemed to vanish into thin air. It started with small things. Malik asked me one morning, "Mom, why doesn't Dad ever say thank you when you make lunch?" I paused, my heart tightening. I wanted to tell him. He does, in his own way, but even I knew it wasn't true. I knelt beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead, and said softly, "Sometimes people forget to say thank you, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean they don't care." At school pickups, neighbors would comment, "Your home always looks so lovely." I would smile and nod, feeling proud, but a pang of sadness would follow. Jamal never noticed the effort I put into our home, and it stung to have others acknowledge it when he didn't. Evenings became a challenge. I would prepare dinner, lay out the food, and invite Jamal to sit with us. He would be tired, distracted by work emails or his phone, and barely glance at me. The children noticed. Malik, usually cheerful and chatty, started retreating into himself. Tasha, once eager to share her school projects, would show them to me instead, as if seeking someone who truly saw her. One night, after Jamal had gone to bed early, I sat alone at the kitchen table. I held a mug of tea, the steam curling up into the dim light, and thought about the life we had built. I whispered to myself, "Did I do something wrong? Did I fail somewhere?" I knew I hadn't. I had given everything, my time, my energy, my heart, and yet I felt like a ghost in my own home. That feeling of invisibility gnawed at me every day. The tension started spilling into our conversations. Simple questions from me would receive curt replies. Discussions about bills or weekend plans became debates. Even small disagreements felt like emotional mountains. I remember one evening asking Jamal if he could help Malik with his math homework. "I'm tired, Aisha," he said, rubbing his temples. "I don't have time for this right now." Tired. Always tired. I nodded, trying to hide my frustration, but I couldn't help the whisper in my heart. "I've been tired too. Every single day, and you never notice." The children sensed it too. Malik would glance at me with worried eyes, asking, "Mom, are you okay?" Tasha would hug me tightly and whisper, "I want us to be happy again." Their innocence broke my heart. I wanted to shield them from this invisible tension, but I couldn't hide it completely. As the weeks passed, I tried subtle gestures to remind Jamal of my presence and contribution. I would leave little notes around the house, "Made your favorite dinner," or "Laundry done for the week." Sometimes I'd cook a special breakfast or decorate the living room with fresh flowers. But he barely noticed. One morning, I placed a bouquet of daisies on the dining table, smiling at the thought of brightening his day. He glanced at them for a second, muttered, "Nice," and walked away. That single word, "nice," felt like a slap to my heart. "Nice? That's all you see?" I began doubting myself. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe he was stressed. Maybe I was overreacting. I told myself that often. But deep inside, I knew the truth. The man I loved, the father of my children, was forgetting me, forgetting who I was and all I had done for this family. I confided in my sister, Keisha, one Sunday afternoon. We sat on the porch, sipping iced tea, rain softly tapping the roof. "I feel invisible," I whispered. "It's like I'm living here, but I don't exist in his eyes anymore." Keisha reached over, squeezing my hand. "Aisha, you've given your heart, your time, everything. If he can't see that, it's not because you're invisible. It's because he's lost sight of what matters." Her words comforted me, but they didn't solve the problem. And I knew it. Tension escalated one Friday evening. I had just finished tidying up after dinner when Jamal walked in, frowning. "Aisha, why are the bills all over the counter?" Did you even check them? I froze, then calmly replied, I reviewed the bills yesterday and set reminders for the ones due this week. He shook his head, irritation in his voice. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm doing everything around here. You just float around, don't you? I felt a lump in my throat, but I refused to argue. Instead, I whispered, I do a lot, Jamal. You just don't see it. He didn't respond. He left the room, slamming the cabinet door softly behind him. I heard the children stir, and Tasha peeked around the corner, eyes wide. Mom, are we in trouble? I hugged her close. No, baby. We're okay. Just grown-up stuff, I murmured. That night, I cried quietly in bed, thinking about how love can feel so heavy when it isn't acknowledged. I thought about the sacrifices I made, the patience I practiced, the nights I went without rest, and the years I gave to this family. All of it seemed to vanish in the silence of one man's disregard. The breaking point came unexpectedly. Jamal was hosting a small dinner with his colleagues at our home. I spent the entire day preparing, cleaning, cooking, arranging, making sure everything looked perfect. I even bought fresh flowers and polished the silverware. I wanted our home to reflect the life we had built together. When the guests arrived, I greeted them warmly, offered drinks, and made sure the children were occupied. Jamal, however, didn't seem to notice any of it. He introduced me briefly and then continued talking to his colleagues, gesturing at the home as if it had always been this way. At one point, he said, laughing, I did all this on my own. You wouldn't believe the effort it took. My hands trembled as I held a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Did he just say that? I wanted to correct him, to say, I've done everything you're praising for years. But I stayed quiet. The room seemed to close in around me, my heart racing, my chest tight. I excused myself and went to the kitchen. I closed the door softly, leaned against it, and let the tears fall. I thought of all the times I had built this home, cared for this family, and been invisible. I thought of Malik and Tasha, watching their father praise someone else's work that wasn't his. I felt a quiet fury and a deep sadness all at once. It was a turning point I couldn't ignore. I realized that silence wasn't helping. Pretending that everything was fine only made the pain grow heavier. I needed to find a way to be seen, to reclaim my place, and to remind the man I loved who had built this home. That night, I stayed awake long after Jamal and the children had gone to bed. I wrote in my journal, I have been patient, I have been loving, I have been here, and I will not disappear silently. I deserve to be seen. I didn't know yet how I would do it, but for the first time in months, I felt a small flicker of courage. The days after the dinner with Jamal's colleagues felt heavier than ever. I moved through our home quietly, performing tasks, but carrying a growing weight in my chest. I realized that pretending everything was fine wasn't working anymore. Something had to give. I couldn't keep watching the man I loved forget all I had done, forget me. It started with small gestures. I left a note on the fridge one morning. I need you to see me. I need you to notice me. I didn't expect him to read it, but I wanted to speak my truth, even if it was just in writing. Later that evening, Jamal came home, tired as usual. The children ran to greet him, and I set the table silently. He looked around, then said without much thought, Dinner's ready? Yes, I said softly. Please sit. Malik and Tasha want to tell you about their day. He nodded and sat down, barely glancing at the food. The children started talking about their school projects, and I watched Jamal nod along, his mind clearly elsewhere. My heart tightened. I wanted him to see me, to acknowledge me, to know how much I had carried for this family. After dinner, I finally gathered my courage. I took a deep breath and said, Jamal, can we talk? He looked at me, surprised. About what? About us, about this home, About everything I do here. You've said things lately that hurt me. You've forgotten what I've done for this family, and I can't keep pretending that it doesn't matter. He leaned back in his chair, frowning. Aisha, you're overreacting. I never said you didn't do anything. I shook my head. No, you said I wasn't necessary, that you could do all this on your own. You've ignored my efforts, my sacrifices, my love, and I can't stay quiet anymore. He sighed and ran his hands through his hair. I, I didn't realize. I've been stressed. Work. Life. I didn't mean it like that. But the words rang hollow. I had heard apologies before. I needed him to see, truly see, what he had overlooked. I needed a turning point. A few days later, an unexpected event forced everything into the open. Malik had a school project due, a family tree presentation. He wanted me to help. I agreed, excited to share our family history. As we worked together, he asked, Mom, can we put in all the things you do for us? All the times you take care of us? I smiled, trying to hold back tears. Of course, baby. You should always remember who helps you grow. We added little notes about my care, the meals I cooked, the nights I stayed awake, the love I poured into our home. When we finished, Malik looked at me with wide eyes. Mom, we should show Dad. I hesitated. I wasn't sure if confronting Jamal this way would help, or if it would just cause another argument, but I realized that sometimes the truth needs to be undeniable. That evening, after dinner, Malik and I presented the family tree to Jamal. He looked confused at first, then intrigued as Malik explained each branch, each note, and finally, when he reached my contributions, he froze. He read silently, his eyes flicking from the paper to me. I held my breath. For the first time in months, I felt seen. He swallowed, then said quietly, I I didn't realize. Yes, you did, I replied softly. You just forgot. You forgot the nights I stayed awake with the children, the meals I prepared, the bills I managed, the sacrifices I made so you could focus on your work. You forgot me, Jamal. You forgot who built this home. He looked down at his hands, silence stretching between us. Tasha reached over and held mine. Mom, it's okay. We see you. I nodded, grateful for my children. I realized then that even if Jamal hadn't seen me fully, my love and dedication were not invisible to those who mattered most, our children. That night, Jamal came to my side as I was putting the children to bed. He didn't speak at first. Then he whispered, Aisha, I'm sorry. I've been blind. I see you now. I wanted to believe him, wanted to feel the warmth that once filled our home. But part of me was cautious. Words were easy to say. Recognition had to be shown through action. The next days became a delicate process. Jamal began noticing small things. The meals I prepared, the way the house was organized, the little sacrifices I made. He started helping without me asking, checking in with the children and acknowledging my efforts. One afternoon, I caught him in the kitchen, washing dishes while I prepared dinner. You don't have to do that, I said softly. I know, he replied, but I want to. I want to show you that I see everything you do. My heart swelled. For the first time in months, I felt the weight in my chest lift slightly. Love was still here, waiting beneath the cracks. It wasn't gone. It had just been buried under routine, stress, and forgetfulness. But the turning point wasn't just about recognition, it was also about communication. We began talking more openly about our feelings, our fears, and our frustrations. Jamal admitted he had been unaware of the impact of his words, and I shared my pain without anger, only honesty. One rainy evening, as we sat together on the porch, sipping tea and listening to the drops against the roof, he reached over and held my hand. Aisha, I promise I won't forget again. You've built this home, held our family together, and given everything. I see you. I really do. I leaned my head against his shoulder, letting the warmth seep in. The journey wasn't over, but the first step had been taken. Recognition, acknowledgement, love. I realized then that building a home isn't just about walls, furniture, or meals. It's about seeing each other, valuing each other, and remembering that the person beside you carries as much weight as you do. That night, after tucking the children into bed, I sat in the quiet of our living room and reflected on the journey. I had felt invisible, unappreciated, even forgotten. But through honesty, courage, and quiet persistence, the truth had surfaced. Jamal had been reminded of my presence, and more importantly, of my heart. It wasn't easy. Healing rarely is. But the moment I felt truly seen again, I understood something important. Love is not just given, it must be recognized, nurtured, and honored every day. The turning point had come not through anger, not through yelling or confrontation, but through patience, persistence, and the courage to show the truth. I had spoken my heart, Malik and Tasha had shown their love and recognition, and Jamal had finally opened his eyes. It was a lesson I would carry forever: the value of being seen, the importance of acknowledgement, and the power of gentle truth. And though the road ahead would still have its challenges, for the first time in months, I felt hope, real hope. The days following Jamal's realization felt different. The heaviness in our home had lifted, replaced with a gentle warmth I hadn't felt in months. It wasn't immediate, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real. Jamal began noticing the little things again. He would compliment the meals I cooked, ask how my day had gone, and even help with household tasks without being prompted. These were small gestures, but to me, they meant the world. They were proof that he remembered, proof that he saw me. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry in the living room, he walked in, holding a stack of clean towels. "I thought I'd help," he said with a shy smile. "I miss doing this with you." I looked at him, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel hurt or overlooked. I felt seen. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice catching slightly. It wasn't just about chores, though. Our conversations began to flow more naturally. We shared feelings, frustrations, and little victories. Jamal started talking about work stress without it spilling over into our home. I started expressing my needs without fear of judgment or dismissal. The children noticed the change too. Malik's cheerful demeanor returned, and Tasha began showing me her drawings again, this time proudly presenting them to both of us. One evening, Malik said, "Mom, I'm glad you and Dad are talking more." I missed this. I held him close, realizing that part of healing our home was about healing the children's hearts as well. They had been feeling the tension, sensing my sadness, and I knew that restoring our bond wasn't just about me and Jamal. It was about the entire family. One weekend, we decided to spend time together outside the house. We went to the park, flew kites, and had a small picnic. Jamal made sure the children were laughing, genuinely present with them. I watched him and felt a quiet sense of relief. This was the man I married, the man who loved his family, who could still show care and attention when reminded. Even in our small gestures at home, there was a new rhythm. I noticed Jamal leaving sticky notes for me on the fridge. "You're amazing. Thank you for everything. Love you." It was almost unbelievable how much a few words could mean after months of feeling invisible. One evening, I found myself cooking dinner while Jamal and the children were in the living room. Malik asked him a question about a school project, and I heard Jamal pause, smile, and acknowledge the effort I had put in earlier. It was subtle, but it mattered. That night, after the children had gone to bed, Jamal and I sat on the porch, listening to the gentle hum of the evening. Aisha, he said, I don't want to forget again. I've been blind, and I see now how much you do, how much you give, every single day. I'm so sorry for making you feel invisible. I reached out, holding his hand in mine. Thank you, Jamal. It means a lot that you finally see it. But more than that, I want us to remember to never forget to acknowledge each other, no matter how busy or tired we are. He nodded. I promise. From now on, I'll make sure you're always seen. It wasn't just about words or gestures. It was about rebuilding trust, about creating a home where every person feels valued and acknowledged. Over the next few weeks, we made small but meaningful changes. I began setting aside time each week for Jamal and me to talk. Uninterrupted, honest conversations about our feelings, our dreams, and even our mistakes. We shared our responsibilities more evenly, and he made sure to show appreciation for the things I did without prompting. The children thrived in this new environment. Malik and Tasha became more open, more confident, and more joyful. They could feel the change in our home, and it reflected in their laughter and curiosity. One evening, as I watched Jamal help Tasha with her homework, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude that we had reached this point, gratitude for the patience I had mustered, and gratitude that love, quiet, enduring love, could find its way back even after neglect and forgetfulness. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, all the nights I stayed awake, all the meals I cooked, and the countless small acts that had once gone unnoticed. And I realized that being seen wasn't just about acknowledgement, it was about being recognized for the love and care that formed the backbone of our family. Jamal and I began creating new rituals. We would leave small notes for each other, take walks in the evenings, and spend dedicated time with the children. These weren't grand gestures, they were simple, heartfelt actions that reminded us of our bond. One Saturday morning, as I was setting the table for breakfast, Jamal came up behind me and whispered, You know, I was wrong. You've always been necessary, more than necessary. You've built this home, held our family together, and I never said it enough. I see you now, Aisha. I promise to never forget. I smiled, a soft warmth spreading through my chest. Thank you, Jamal. That's all I've ever wanted. To be seen, to be appreciated, and to share this life with you fully. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Life was still busy, work was still stressful, and challenges would arise. But the foundation had shifted. Recognition, understanding, and love had returned to our home, stronger than before. I began to understand the true meaning of sacrifice and love. Sacrifice is not just giving, it's also having the courage to be seen. Love is not just feeling, it's also acknowledgement, respect, and gentle care. The children learned from our journey too. Malik said one night, Mom, Dad, I'll always try to notice the little things you do for me. I don't want anyone to feel invisible. Tasha hugged me and whispered, I want us to always say thank you to each other, even for small things. And in that moment, I realized that our struggles had taught us something invaluable. They had shown us the importance of presence, of appreciation, and of speaking the quiet truths that often go unspoken. I no longer felt invisible. I no longer doubted my worth. I was seen, loved, and recognized. And I had the courage to ensure that recognition never faded again. Through patience, gentle confrontation, and unwavering love, our family had found its rhythm again. The walls of our home, once silent witnesses to neglect and oversight, now echoed with laughter, gratitude, and warmth. I learned that love can endure forgetfulness, that recognition can be reclaimed, and that even after months of feeling unseen, hope can return. It doesn't always come easily, but it comes when hearts are willing to listen and eyes are willing to see. Our home, once taken for granted, now felt alive again, not just because of the chores completed or the meals prepared, but because each act of love was acknowledged, celebrated, and reciprocated. Jamal and I still have moments of forgetfulness or stress, but now we catch ourselves. We remind each other of the small things, the invisible acts of care, and the quiet love that binds us together. I look back on the months of pain and frustration with a sense of clarity. It wasn't about blame. It wasn't about resentment. It was about awakening. Awakening a heart to see what it had overlooked. Awakening a family to recognize its foundation. And awakening me to my own strength. Years from that moment, I still carry the lesson of that time in my heart. I remember the evenings spent at the kitchen sink, tears quietly falling, feeling invisible in the very home I had built. I remember the long, silent dinners, the small frustrations, and the growing distance between Jamal and me. And I remember the turning point, the day the truth was undeniable and our family began to heal. Life isn't perfect. There are still moments of stress, forgetfulness, and miscommunication. But now, when I feel invisible or overlooked, I know how to speak my truth calmly, gently, and honestly. I know that love is not only about giving, it's about being seen, being acknowledged, and being valued. Jamal and I have learned to appreciate each other every day in small ways. He leaves notes, helps with chores, and listens when I speak. I notice his efforts too, and we celebrate each other's presence and contributions. The children see it too, and our home feels alive with warmth and gratitude. I've also learned that recognition isn't about grand gestures. It's about noticing the quiet sacrifices, the small acts of care, and the love that goes into making a home a place of safety and joy. Every hug, every word of thanks, every smile shared around the table matters. Sometimes, when I watch Jamal playing with Malik and Tasha, or helping me in the kitchen, I feel a quiet pride, not in myself alone, but in the life we've built together, one that survived misunderstanding, neglect, and hurt because we refused to give up on each other. I want to leave this story as a reminder. Never underestimate the power of acknowledgement. Never take for granted the hands that hold your family together. And never forget to say thank you, to show love, and to see the people who quietly make your life possible. For anyone who feels invisible, unappreciated, or forgotten, know this: your efforts are not meaningless. Your love matters. And even when those around you seem blind to it, there is a way to be seen through patience, gentle truth, and the courage to speak your heart. Today, our home is filled with laughter, warmth, and quiet joy. Jamal, Malik, Tasha, and I have learned the art of noticing, of gratitude, and of care. And as I look around at the life we've built, I feel a deep, enduring sense of peace. Life will always have challenges, and relationships will always require patience and understanding. But the most important lesson I learned is this: love is not just about giving, it is also about acknowledging, seeing, and celebrating the person who shares that life with you. And when you do that, the home you've built becomes more than walls and furniture. It becomes a sanctuary of hearts,